All right, hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Healthy Comfort Foods. Before I get started, just a couple of the normal items to take care of. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation, and you can type those into the question box in the lower portion of your control panel, and we will be posting a recording of the webinar online. But if you would like a copy of the presentation in PDF format, which you may today because there's a lot of good recipes, or if your question does not get answered today, please email our support inbox, which will be shown at the end as well. Okay, here is the plan for today. I want to chat about how we can make the comfort foods that we all love maybe just a little bit healthier. I'm going to cover some specific ingredient swaps that you can make in your existing recipes to make them more nutritious. Then I will go through some actual recipes that give a healthy spin on some of the traditional comfort foods out there. So, like I said, I want to start with some ingredient swaps first. How about we start with mayonnaise, mayo. This is a pretty big staple in things like potato salad, egg salad, veggie dips, on our sandwiches, things like that. The big drawback that mayo can have is that a lot of times it has added vegetable oils or other processed oils that can cause inflammation in our bodies and have a negative effect on our cholesterol. So if we can swap it out for a whole food option, you'll be adding in some nutrients and taking out some of those negative aspects. One food you can do instead is avocado. It has a similar texture and it spreads on sandwiches easily, or again, you can throw it into that potato salad or some other salad that calls for mayo. Avocado has a ton of great nutrients like fiber, potassium, which actually they have more than a banana, just a fun fact there. And they also have healthy monounsaturated fats, which are great for heart health. And that's just naming a few of the benefits of avocado. Now, if you're not a big avocado fan, some other options to swap in for your mayo, one is hummus, which would go well in egg salad or tuna salad, or again, on that sandwich. Hummus is typically made with chickpeas, tahini, which is just ground sesame seeds, olive oil, lemon juice, and garlic. Hummus is a great source of plant-based protein coming from those chickpeas, and also has things like fiber, antioxidants, iron, folate, and B vitamins. We're going to go over some of those benefits of those in some of the other foods that I talk about in a little bit. Greek yogurt is another option as well, which I'm going to cover here again in a minute with the sour cream, so I will wait to go over the benefits of that. Pesto is a fourth option for things like veggie dip and potato salad. Pesto, if you're not familiar, is typically made with basil, pine nuts, garlic, Parmesan cheese, and olive oil. So you're getting those healthy fats that come from olive oil and pine nuts, actually, and then the multiple benefits that can come with garlic. Things like immune support is just one of the many benefits of garlic as well. And then last but not least, slicing up some hard-boiled eggs can be a great substitute for mayo on those sandwiches. Egg is a big part of mayo to begin with, so you get the similar flavor, you get a great amount of protein, and you get a lot less of that extra processed stuff. Is that enough options for mayo for you, hopefully? I hope so. Let's move on. Sour cream. Many of us love a dollop of sour cream on baked potato, taco salad, all that good stuff. And this swap is probably the easiest one that you're going to find, in my opinion, because plain Greek yogurt, that is, has a very similar texture and taste to sour cream. Trust me, give it a try for yourself. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Now, sour cream and Greek yogurt both have some similar benefits, like protein, calcium, and vitamin B12, but Greek yogurt is going to have more protein and more of that vitamin B12. And the added benefit of Greek yogurt is for your gut health. Yogurt has probiotics, which are live bacteria that support the healthy bacteria in your gut. One thing just to be mindful of, check that your yogurt has those live active cultures for that benefit, because some don't have that due to processing. Let's jump back to avocado for a minute. You already know some of the benefits and that it can replace mayo, but it can also be an alternative to butter as well. Now, butter isn't necessarily always the enemy. If you get a good quality grass-fed butter, it's not a bad thing, but we can always use some other options for a variety of nutrients, like I talked about, that some of these other foods can bring. Avocado, again, easy to spread on sandwiches, and if you're baking, you can substitute half the butter you're using for avocado, or you can use it for the whole amount too. If you do that, it's recommended to lower the temperature and lengthen the time of baking if you're going to use the avocado instead of a butter. Another substitution for butter is oil, like coconut oil, which I'll touch on here in a second, which is chock full of healthy fats. You can usually swap this for butter in a 1-to-1 ratio, but just know that it can change the texture a little bit, not in a bad way, just different. So just be mindful of that with some of these swaps. Okay, how about vegetable oil? I just told you that it can possibly affect our body in a negative way. So what are some other options that you can use when you've got these in a recipe? Well, we've got that olive oil that I already mentioned with good healthy fats. Olive oil is going to be best substituted for things like your dressing on your salad, marinades, and then sauteed in low to medium heat. Then we have coconut oil, which again, healthy fat properties there. And then coconut oil is going to be better than olive oil for your high heat cooking because it retains its nutrients at a higher temperature. It's called a higher smoke point, if you've heard of that before. Coconut oil can have a richer flavor, so it might not be right for all recipes, but just keep that in mind. It's going to be good for a lot of them. Flaxseed oil is another great heart-healthy option. This one is going to be used for marinades and salad dressings, as again, it's similar to olive oil. It's not as heat stable like coconut oil. And then our avocado, if I can say it, makes another appearance, this time in oil form. This oil also has a high smoke point like coconut oil, so you can use it for anything from grilling and baking to your dressings, marinades, and sauces. Lots and lots of options here for some good oils. Again, just getting in extra nutrients, taking out some of the processed stuff here for you. All right, last one for this page, sugar. We know there's a ton of comfort foods and holiday foods coming into season that call for sugar. If you've watched some of our past webinars on nutrition, you know how we feel about sugar. It can cause inflammation in our bodies. We store excess sugar as fat. It hurts our ability to sleep, deal with stress, our moods, just to name a few. So this is definitely something that we need to get less of. So let's talk about a few options that you can cut out for this year, or that you can help cut out this year. It's not easy, again, but there are a few things you can do. Stevia, or stevia, depending on where you are, is considered the best artificial sweetener at this point, so that's a good option for you. You can find it next to the sugar usually in most grocery stores. It comes in granules like sugar, or it can come in liquid form. The thing to remember with stevia is that you do not need nearly as much of that as you do of sugar. So do some research before you dump that same amount in your recipes. That's not going to taste good if you do 1-to-1 ratio. Honey and maple syrup are a couple other more natural options. You will usually use about 3/4 of the amount of these as your normal sugar amount. So again, do some research before you bake. Also, keep in mind that while these are natural sugars and our body will be able to utilize them better than regular sugar, we still need to be really mindful of all the sugars we're taking in. So again, portion control still comes into play when you're eating whatever you make with these options as well. Okay, last option for sugar in baking, unsweetened applesauce. This is a fantastic swap. I've seen it used all the time and use it myself. You can swap this at a 1-to-1 ratio most of the time, but if you do that, you need to reduce some of the other liquid if it calls for milk or water or whatever you're using. You want to reduce it by about 1/4 of a cup typically, just because it's going to have more moisture in it with the applesauce rather than the sugar. Okay, let's do a few more here and then we'll move on to the actual recipes. Let's talk about some actual foods rather than just ingredients. How about rice as a starter? Now, I know this is a staple in many diets and it's a really easy side dish, but it's really easy to overeat. It can carry a lot of extra carbohydrates that break down really easily into sugar in our bodies. And then if we don't use that up, we end up storing it as fat, right? Quinoa is a great option to try. You're still going to have carbohydrates, but you're going to get less than rice, and it also has more fiber than your white rice and also has double the protein. And it's a complete protein, quinoa is. You're getting lots and lots of good benefits with that protein. Now, for those of you getting ready to ask, yes, brown rice is typically a better choice than white, as it will break down slower in our bodies because it has more fiber, but it's still something that we should try to lower overall in our diet and look for other alternatives that give us just some more benefits. Another option is cauliflower. You may hear this more with potatoes as an option, which I'm going to touch on here in a minute, but you can also rice your cauliflower to make it very similar to regular rice. Benefits of cauliflower, I'm going to cover those when I give you the recipe for the cauliflower potatoes, but know that there is some really good stuff in there. And you can also buy ready-made steamer bags of riced cauliflower in your freezer section, so be on the lookout. And a lot of these vegetables and things that you'll see, you can get good frozen options if you don't have them for fresh. All right, how about noodles? We all love our pasta, myself included. It's a great, easy comfort food. But again, similar to rice, it's an easy filler food, but it's so easy to go overboard on those portions and overload our body with those extra unnecessary carbohydrates that are just going to end up getting stored as fat, cause inflammation in our bodies, and cause other issues. Two go-to options for noodle substitutes are spaghetti squash and zucchini. I'm going to cover the benefits again when I talk about the actual recipes that include these options, so be ready for that. But again, same thing goes for whole wheat pasta, similar to the brown rice. It's better, but I think we can even get better with some variety in our diet. And again, we add in so many nutrients with some of these other things. And then lastly, potatoes, specifically mashed potatoes. Almost everyone has a heaping pile of these on their plate during some holiday get-togethers, right? Potatoes do have great nutrients in them. Please don't get me wrong about that. But like I've already been talking about, they tend to be a bit heavy on the carbohydrate side, and a little bit of a variety, especially when it comes to mashed potatoes, can benefit you in the long run. Because I say that because potatoes tend to have most of their nutrients in their skin. And when we do mashed potatoes, we usually get rid of that part, so we're losing a lot of those great benefits. And again, I'm going to give you a specific recipe on how to use that cauliflower, like I said, so hold tight. Okay, let's get to what you've been waiting for. Give me some recipes. Here we go. When we think of comfort foods, what's more comforting than chicken noodle soup? It's warm, it's delicious, it makes you feel all cozy inside. But if we put just a few more minutes into preparing it, we can cut down on some of those not so healthy aspects that sometimes come with the canned version. Things like added sodium and possibly some unwanted chemicals that come along with that as well. Now I'm going to give you two options, one for the traditionalist who can't, or maybe more accurately won't, take out the egg noodles from your chicken noodle soup, and then I'm going to give you one for those who want to cut out more of those unnecessary carbohydrates to make an even more nutritious option. So again, let's start with the traditional way first. Even better with this one, this is a slow cooker recipe. Yay for busy families or busy people, right? So as you can see, pretty simple ingredients. Throw them in the slow cooker. You don't even need to cook the chicken ahead of time, which I love. Just throw everything in. After 6 to 8 hours, take the chicken out, shred it, take out those herbs that are added in for flavor, add those egg noodles, keep it in there for a little bit longer, and then you have it. This is about 6 to 8 servings, if anyone has any questions on that, so you can double it if you want to make a bigger serving. Next, so those of you who want to cut out some of those carbohydrates that come with the egg noodles and add in some great nutrients, here you go. Now, as you can see, this recipe is very similar to the one I just showed you, but we substitute spaghetti squash for the egg noodles. This also isn't a slow cooker recipe, but it's one that you can make ahead of time and have leftovers. It's still not going to take that long. Now, you may want to increase the recipe if you do like to have more leftovers, because this is only about 4 servings or so, so you can easily double it. So again, same principles of chicken noodle soup, but we're just putting in that spaghetti squash with the more nutrients than the regular egg noodles. But hold on, how do I cook the spaghetti squash, you ask? Here we go. It's really, really easy. All you have to do is cut that squash in half, scoop out the seeds and the fibers that are going to be in the middle, sprinkle it with a little bit of salt and pepper if you like, and cook it until it's tender. A couple cooking tips with this to make the squash easier to cut in the first place. You can poke it with the fork a few times, throw it in the microwave for about a minute to soften it up. Also, I find that I usually have to cook mine a little bit longer in my oven, so just pay attention to the tenderness and see how your oven does best. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, and some of the squash is a little bit different as far as the thickness and things like that. So just keep that in mind. This might not be exactly the accurate time for you. Now, cooking up spaghetti squash can also help replace another comfort food, spaghetti, right? Big bowls of spaghetti can be great, great comfort foods, but once again, it's so easy to go overboard, fill our bodies with too much without really getting anything useful out of it in the long run. Now, if you whip up that spaghetti squash recipe, you can throw some of your favorite sauce on it and you're done. And I wanted to give you this. If you want to take it a step further, you can make your own sauce. This is just a simple recipe for marinara sauce. There are a million recipes out there, so if you don't like this one, hop online and look for some others. And again, if you want to use the canned sauce, look for the healthiest version you can find. Otherwise, this isn't going to take you long either. So just some other options out there. Now, I talked about that I was going to give you the benefits of spaghetti squash when we talked earlier, so here they are. Alpha and beta carotene, which the body turns into vitamin A. Just a couple of the benefits with that is eye health, and it's an antioxidant, which helps fight against things like cancer formation. It's also a good source of vitamin C, which is another antioxidant that fights free radicals in our body, which can cause those chronic diseases and things like cancer. Calcium is another benefit of spaghetti squash, which most of us know help with bone health. So again, great things that you're adding in when you just make a simple swap of spaghetti squash rather than regular spaghetti. Okay, let's add in a different soup to the mix for those of you who aren't big on chicken noodle soup or would just like a vegan option. This also gets a fall food that's in season, pumpkin. This one has some ingredients that can help you get out of your comfort zone maybe a little bit, like curry powder, that type of thing, but it's really, really good, so don't be scared and please give it a try. If you're not familiar, just a couple notes. Ghee is similar to butter, if you don't know that. The thing I like about this recipe too is that this one does use canned pumpkin, which in my world and busy worlds, it's easier. Now you can always cook up your own pumpkin and throw it in the food processor or blender as well. It's going to be similar to making that spaghetti squash, which is fantastic. Please, please do that if you feel like you want to or if you have the time. But anyways, here are the instructions. Nothing too complicated with this when you get right down to it. I know there's a lot of words, but it's really not that bad. And on a side note with this, I am a terrible baker, cooker, whatever term you want to use, but I have found as I push myself further with trying new things that it really isn't that hard. It's following directions and you can do it. Do not be intimidated by ingredients that you haven't used or a few extra steps in the cooking process. If I can do it, anybody can. Really, trust me, I promise. Okay, moving on. Let's go to the benefits of this as a new comfort food for you this year. It's going to have similar benefits as that squash, which makes sense because they're in the same family. You're going to get that same beta carotene, some vitamin C, which is a vitamin C, and vitamin C, excuse me. Potassium is strong in pumpkin, which helps with blood pressure and can reduce your risk of stroke. Sounds like worth a try to me for all these benefits. And that doesn't even include the benefits that come from the coconut milk and the other herbs and things that are in this recipe. That's just the pumpkin. So you're getting a lot of other good things too that I'm not listing here today. Let's move on to that comfort food that has some benefits, but some of us, as you know, indulge a little bit too much, and that's those mashed potatoes that I've already talked about. Most of you have probably seen or heard about cauliflower mashed potatoes, and some of you may have a strong opinion on them, good or bad. I get it. They're not exactly the same, but you can get really, really close if you have a good recipe. So I encourage you to keep trying if you haven't had success yet. Just like all the recipes today, these are not the only ones out there, so keep trying. It really is worth the effort to help your health. Okay, but back to the recipes. This one has garlic in it for some great flavor, as well as lots of options for garnish. The big tip with cauliflower potatoes is really to work at getting that excess moisture out of them. So this recipe calls for you to drain it, but if you want to, after you put it in the food processor, you can put it in a cheesecloth or even a regular towel just to get in some of that get out some of that extra moisture if you've got some in there. And you don't need a food processor either for this one. You can use a regular potato masher or a hand blender as well. Now, they may be a little extra lumpy, but maybe that reminds you of your family get-togethers in the past with your grandma's lumpy potatoes, maybe. So, but it's still going to taste great for you. Now, cauliflower has a ton of great benefits as well. Fiber for our digestive system and helping us to feel full, antioxidants to help fight inflammation and chronic diseases. Cauliflower also has choline in it, which helps maintain our cell health and our brain and nervous system development. Pretty important stuff in that little veggie. And remember, potatoes aren't the enemy, but we tend to strip a lot of those benefits out when we peel them to make mashed potatoes. So this is why, again, I'm bringing these other options to the table. Okay, If you've tried cauliflower and it's just gonna be a no-go for you and you're not gonna budge, here's another option to try to get a little variety. Roasted butternut squash can be similar to roasted potatoes and can give you that variety and good nutrients. This is really easy. Cut up the squash, throw some oil, salt and pepper on it, roast it up, then toss it again with some garlic and parsley, and you're done. And then same tip as the other squash and the pumpkin. You can soften it up by throwing it in the microwave for a minute. So benefits of butternut squash. Again, it's in the same family as these other foods, so similar benefits like potassium, fiber, vitamin A and C. One other one that butternut squash has is manganese, which can help calcium absorption, which we know helps our bone health. So lots and lots of good things, again, within all of these foods that are in season right now and that can be included in some of these comfort foods. All right, next comfort food, lasagna, yum. Bit of lasagna is just what the doctor ordered sometimes. Now this recipe is almost identical to regular lasagna, but we use zucchini noodles instead of regular noodles. So again, these are called noodles sometimes, in case you've heard that before. All that is noodles made out of zucchini. So again, lots of good herbs and spices in here, and you don't need to add the ground beef if you don't want to, or you can sub in ground turkey or another protein in there as well. I'll use ground venison sometimes in these recipes. Now again, this is a lot of words. Don't be intimidated by the instructions. There are just a lot of layers in lasagna, right? Now, I'm not going to hit all these instructions, but if you're trying to take notes, like I said at the beginning, please just shoot us an email to healthcoach@healthcheck360.com, which will be shown at the end as well, and request a PDF copy of the slides so you can give your hand a little bit of a break, because I know I go a little bit fast through some of these things, just because we only have a half an hour. So let's talk benefits of zucchini. Vitamin C, potassium, fiber, B vitamins. One big B vitamin that zucchini has is folate, which is very important in women's health, especially if you're pregnant or trying to get pregnant. Keep in mind too that I'm not listing all the nutrients in all of these foods. I'm just hitting the big ones. So if you're curious to see everything that any of these foods have, please do some research and find out some more. Okay, let's hit some desserts, shall we? Warm apple crisp, my favorite. Now again, nothing too crazy, and I love the whole food options in this recipe. You've got apples, you've got maple syrup for our sweetener instead of loads of sugar, almond flour, old-fashioned oats for some good fiber, nuts, cinnamon, coconut oil, lots of good stuff on here that transforms into a yummy, yummy dessert. If you've made apple crisp before, the instructions are going to be similar as well, as you can see right here. Simple stuff. And again, I know that you might be intimidated, but please don't, because it really is simple once you get into it. Now, for the benefits, I wanted to hit on the benefits of almond flour. Great source of vitamin E, which is, again, an antioxidant. Magnesium, which is an extremely underrated mineral, in my opinion, that our body needs for many things, just a few of which include blood sugar control, blood pressure control, brain function, and things like our mood. Really, really important for us. Another good reason to use almond flour versus regular flour is that it's gluten-free. So for those of you who have celiac disease or a wheat intolerance that causes you issues with digestion and things when you eat gluten, this is a really good alternative. Now, gluten-free has become somewhat of a fad, and I don't think that everyone needs to go gluten-free. But again, it's really valuable if you have a sensitivity to it. One note with almond flour is that it may give a different texture to your baked goods, not so much with the apple crisp, but if you're doing more brownies or things like that, it can make them a little more flat and dense. They just don't puff up as much. You're not going to get a different flavor necessarily, but they just might look a little different. So just keep that in mind when you're cooking with those. And last recipe, and hopefully a popular one, ice cream. Yay for ice cream and yay for banana ice cream. Honestly, if you have not tried this, please try it. It's so simple, and the texture is really close to real ice cream. It's pretty amazing, actually. All you do, let your bananas get overripe, chop them up, throw them in the freezer. When you're ready, toss them in a blender or food processor, adding in some little bit of salt, and some milk if you want to make it easier to chop up, and then you're done. If you eat it right away, it's going to be more like your soft serve ice cream, especially if you're adding in that milk. Or you can throw it in the freezer and make it more like traditional scoop ice cream. All right, but hey, I have all these yummy looking flavors in this picture, right? What about those? All right, here you go. 7 options for you, and they are all flavored with natural things, which is even better. You've got your chocolate, you've got your mint chocolate chip, you've got peanut butter. For the peanut butter, another option that's not on here, you can use what's called PB2, which is a powdered peanut butter. So really easy just to mix in there. It's really natural. And then for your peanut butter too, just make sure you're choosing a kind that doesn't have a whole bunch of added sugars and oils. Get as natural as you can. Read those labels. And then we've got very berry and strawberry as other options on here. Vanilla bean is a great option. I love that one. And then pistachio, adding in some great nut options on here as well. Now, for this one, let's talk benefits of banana. A lot of people are fairly familiar, but with the banana ice cream, not only are you taking out a ton of sugar with doing it with bananas instead of the processed stuff, you're adding in some great nutrients. Fiber, potassium, and iron are 3 great benefits of bananas. Anemia, if you're not familiar, it's just a condition where there's a decreased number of red blood cells or hemoglobin, which leads to things like fatigue, shortness of breath, not good things. So this is a great food that gets in some really good things for you. Okay, that is it. That's all I got for today. So we're going to take some questions here in a second, but I want to talk about the upcoming webinars coming up. Next month, December already, we're going to talk about healthy holiday habits. Hopefully give you some tips to keep the holidays a little bit less stressful and a little healthier for you. But you can use some of these recipes as well. Hopefully that will help. And then in January, the typical setting goals. I want to talk about breaking habits. We always focus on making new ones, but what about breaking the ones that we have? They're connected, but I want to kind of give you an idea of how to stop those bad routines so you can make new and improved healthy habits. And then here's our contact information. We are on Twitter, we're on Facebook. The blog, thehealthcheck360.com/blog is where you're going to find the recording of this webinar if you want to listen to it again or pass it along. We're on Instagram, and then again, if you want PDFs of the webinar today, healthcoach@healthcheck360.com right there at the bottom, or you can give us a call. We'd always love to set up a coaching call to chat if you have any specific questions or just want to set some goals.